Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life with Sabine Parzer. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. I'm here today with Angie Hauser. Angie is a BESSIE award-winning performer, choreographer, and director who was trained in modern dance and postmodern dance, ballet, and contact improvisation. Angie is an incredible dancer and has been around for a really long time. She has been seriously involved in research, in performance, and choreography on the stage, at an academic level, in performance. She has been a long-time collaborator with the Bebe Miller Company. She's also has created performances with dance artist Chris Aiken since 2003. They have toured extensively throughout the world. Some of Angie's other choreography projects include collaborations with dance artists, and she's been teaching at different universities such as the Cornell University, Denison University, Columbia College, and is currently teaching at Smith College. She is one of my favorite dancers to watch and to be in a class with, and I present to you a conversation about dance and improvisation and contact improvisation and what it means to sustain a career over many, many years in the profession of dance. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine again with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. I am super happy to be here today with Angie Hauser. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Sabine.
It's so lovely to have you here in this format. It's been amazing because, I've heard about you and I've seen you dance for many, many years, but I didn't actually get to meet you until last summer on Salt Spring Island.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to meet you. Yes, we were in British Columbia, and I had heard your name as well for many years, and so it was lovely to get to spend some time, and even we had a very lovely dance, one of the classes.
Yeah. It's been interesting to kind of follow you from afar and then to meet you in person. And it's kind of an interesting thing because like when you've heard of somebody for such a long time, you kind of get a sense of the person. But until you meet the person in person, it doesn't really like make a full picture. And you have been one of these people where, I've heard lots of great compliments about your dancing, and I've read your bio, and I've seen you like on different videos, and when I met you in person, I was like, oh, my internal image of you just got bigger rather than had to shift to something else. And that was such a lovely experience of, do you know what I mean? Like this inner sort of image that you make of a person, and when you get to meet, and then you actually kind of go like, it's just the same, or it's just getting bigger.
Yes, it has that feeling, and I had this with you as well of oh, yes, we're friends. Like, we could be friends, and then, in fact, we are friends. So I felt as if we had been friends before we actually met in person, and then it just fulfilled that very easily. So, and now we're friends for life.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
There's no going back.
No going back. You're in.
Yeah. Yeah, just maybe to share a little context, we were both at the Contact Festival on Salt Spring Island at Rhizome, which is this amazing place that Selena and Manu, the festival that Selena and Manu are organizing. Actually, Selena, she will be one of my podcast guests in one of the upcoming podcasts. And it's this incredible place up on the mountain with this incredible dome overlooking the harbor on this incredible, powerful island, and with a really beautiful dance community. And so I felt that it was really lovely to also meet you in this context, also knowing that you work you work at the university level, you perform internationally, you have been performing so much, and then to just kind of meet you on the special mountain in the special community was really lovely.
Yeah, I think was true for me, and it sort of repeats itself over and over with the touring, particularly around the improvisation work, that you have these very intimate, deeply bonding moments with other dancers, participants in the workshop, where you go deep very quickly. And so I feel like I have this constellation, over the whole globe of those relationships that I might not ever really interact with that person again, but I because of that deep dancing in those special places, again, forever, you're, forever friend, forever relationship.
Bonding, for sure. Yeah. Angie, you have an incredible bio. You have an incredible dance life story. I'm kind of always asking my guests to go back to the early days, and I would like to ask you the same question that I ask most of my guests is, do you remember like when you were a child, like do you remember your early movement experiences or your early dance experiences, like what they felt like, or do you still remember them, or where were they? Can you share some of those?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question to ask, not just the story, but what did it feel like?
Yeah.
I have the stories that I tend to tell when asked about how I got into dance, but that has a little bit of a different approach. So I'm thinking about it. I think that one thing that comes to mind in terms of that kinesthetic memory of moving and what I think of as moving on purpose was when I was a kind of adolescent, young teenager. I had a trampoline. I got a trampoline for Christmas, and my sister and I got it, but my sister wasn't super interested in it, but I loved it, and I would go out and just jump for hours and hours and hours and just try things. And I can remember both the sort of physical feeling of it, but also the cognitive approaches, like of like imagining something like, oh, what if I what if I launched myself that way off one leg and then twisted in the middle of it, what would happen? And then like trying to do it and seeing what happened. And so that was a very early informative experience that for many years I did that. And it was right in that time of like later adolescence, early teen, kind of when you're really finding yourself as a person. And so there's something about that exploration and that research that I did as a child that was so in the movement and in the movement experimentation and completely free. Like it was just me by myself. There was not a coach. I mean, I've had many wonderful coaches and teachers and mentors that have guided me, but in that situation, it was just me experimenting with movement and just momentum and thrust and exhaustion. I can remember very clearly like being out there on the trampoline for hours and hours and then getting off and what it felt like to hit the ground and then to walk on the ground after I had been in the elastic place for so long, and like how that, like feeling the kind of limitations in my joints, just it didn't hurt. It was just different, the different relationship to gravity when you feel the earth just like boom, not give in the way the trampoline would. So that's an early moment. I didn't grow up. I had some exposure to dance in public school and some exposure to gymnastics, but I didn't like train as a dancer or an athlete when I was in my early years. I didn't start dance until I was about 15, seriously.
Wow, That's the same for me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I was wondering if, your career, had started like for many professional dancers, it kind of has to start at like 4 or 5 with ballet or at least with some gymnastics or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but it sounded like, movement was already present quite early on in your life, even before sort of technical training.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was, or I know I just have always been a moving person and a person who understands the world through touch and experience and perception. And I mean, we all do, but I was very active in that way through my body. Just kind of always. I just enjoyed feeling myself and feeling the world through my whole body. Yeah, so when I did start dancing, it was very serious ballet, and but I had great teachers and great trainers, and I just fell in love with the minutia in the same way almost, but it was just the minutia of like really looking at the details of the body in a way that I had not done before. I had felt it on these like gross actions and experiments, and then to like get into that refinement of technique, which draws your attention to, just that universe of, sorry, I have to turn my light on.
Dude, with you.
That's our movement break.
Yeah.
Just going in, diving into the minutia of movement, and again, like with technique, that sort of movement on purpose. Like, okay, if I'm in the same way as like the jumping, the flipping on the trampoline, it became the like, okay, can I reach my leg, foot in a particular line in space that matches the person next to me, or the example by the instructor? Can I do that, and can I engage my body along with that in a way that I'm being instructed or guided, and how close can I get to it? It's not like I was always like perfection, like exactly the thing. It was more like, how close or far am I from the target? Like, I'm trying to do this thing. And I just fell in love with that process, which is really, it's just, technique of any kind. It's like trying to do something and then noticing what happens, and then trying it again.
Well, it sounds like what you did in both aspects, both in the trampoline and in your early ballet training, was you had this inquisitive mind, sort of this exploration mind around it, and whether it was the free-flowing movement of the trampoline or the technique of it, or the detail-orientedness of the technique, it sounded like you had some sort of mindset already inside of you that was quite exploratory, or just investigative. Is that something where you feel like that was sort of fostered in your home, or your parents, like an inquisitive mind?
Of course, yes. My mother, her name's Patricia, and she is a visual artist. When I was a child, she did all kinds of work, including work in offices and things like that. But she had always been a visual artist, a painter as well, and has had different studios throughout my life. And then by the time I was in high school, was doing her artwork full time and had a gallery. So when I was in high school, the last part of my life at home, she was running a gallery and doing her own artwork. And so, and beyond that, she's a gardener, and she has a way with the house and objects. And I always say that she really taught me how to see and how to observe the world, and that, I have memories of many times drives and walks and whatever, of just like, oh, look at that. Oh, do you see how the cloud also looks like, a wave? Or do you see that bird in that tree? Or, this plant is called this. And so just noticing the world. Yeah, and combined with imagination, that it's not always like, I think there's something about, I've always had it's this thing that you see or perceive, but it's also many other things. And maybe you can see those other things right away also, or it's just knowing that there are things that this also is that I cannot perceive. And just that's the like premise, is that whatever I am perceiving is just the tiny bit of what's actually there. So I think that curiosity that I have that kind of guides that thinking frame that you're talking about comes from knowing that it's just the tiniest bit of really what is happening, what exists, what's around me or inside of my own body. I know that there's, most of it I can't even perceive or begin to put words or ideas to. And so that has been my driver since I was a child, just the love and complete knowledge that we are mysteries, and the world is a mystery, and yet we can exist in it and learn and construct with all of the materials, and change how we understand it through adding to that knowledge. And that's the curiosity. It's like I feel like a scientist. I think mostly my mind is, yes, the creative mind of an artist, but it has that kind of scientific, well, what if we did it this way? What if we did it that way? Just constantly running experiments about perception and reality.
Sounds like she was a great inspiration to you. Your mom.
She was. Yeah, she was amazing.
Yeah.
And I also credit her, well, I credit her for most stuff, but when we were very small, my sister is a little bit older than me. And when we were very small, like 5, maybe, I was maybe even littler, she said, "Oh, come in here." I can't remember how it started, but she's like, "Oh, I'll teach you how to fly." And just like very mundane, matter of fact. And okay. So we go in and we just lie down on the floor. And my mom, she grew up in South Carolina. She, she's not particularly like, I don't know, like, she's not traditional, but she's just regular, it seems. But then she's like, "I'll teach you how to fly." So we lie down on the ground, on the floor, and we're just lying there. And she's like, "Just close your eyes." And she basically then guided us through, a somatic experience where she was talking and we had our eyes closed and we were lying still. And she just was bringing our attention to our bodies and our imagination and our sensation. And yeah, and so that's the kind of things that my mom would do.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she worked on many, or she didn't work, but she like supported your young minds in a way that sort of yes, supported your imagination, but also supported your sensing body, supported also freedom or creative freedom in how you perceive your world. And what I love about it is this level of observation that also included the ability to interact or the ability to play with exactly what you were describing before when you said that you consider yourself a scientist. It's like the scientist who has the freedom to play with whatever is in front. And like when I've seen you in the performances that I've seen you, I actually think that I saw you in the 1990s.
Oh my goodness.
Without knowing you. But I have a visceral memory of it. And so I think I've seen you, and of course I've seen videos of you performing also. I often have the sense that like each moment is like equally valid to the next moment. And I think that's an amazing skill to have. Some of these, some of these performances, I'm assuming are improvised, or I know that they're improvised. By some of them, I'm not 100% sure. But it actually doesn't really matter, because I feel like even the ones where I know it's improvised, I perceive you to be so present at each moment that it could very well be choreographed. So that's an amazing skill, to be as investigative or kind of treat each moment equal, like with equal importance, maybe a jump or a lift or a little gesture. I just want to share that, or it just kind of feels like it's connected to what you were just describing.
It's yes, that description of your experience watching any performance I did, that it's a wonderful compliment, because that is aligned with what I think, how I train and what I value. I think my interest and why I've been drawn to improvisation is that it's that sense of, yes, the democracy of time a little bit, where it's all important. And because it's all important, there's no way you're going to get to everything. It's like we are curating, it's like you're not actually spreading yourself equally over time and space. That's, and dancing and certainly improvising is curating in the moment to find the movement or the state of being that is available of many, many, many. And I think that relationship of choreography and improvisation, and of course, I think we've all moved away from them being binaries. They're not opposite of each other. They really are the same thing. But the kind of aliveness we get from improvisation in performance, where you're seeing the person or people working it out, really solving those problems, for better or worse, right there in front of you. And there's a immediacy of it that gives it a kind of juice that is just so special. That's why I love to see improvisation. That can be available in choreography. It's just the spaces between what's known are just much smaller, but you can still value, as you said, those spaces between the known. They still are there. And they're changing every time you do it. So I've had the great privilege of working with choreographers, particularly Bebe Miller, for so long, who values that also, so that when we are doing very set work, it still has the, right now forward value of whatever is happening right now is in some ways the most important, even though the choreography is there and the design is there. We value those, but if you're not really living in it and solving it in that moment, then you're not really doing the work in the way that we think of it. So that's been a great privilege of mine, to be able to find collaborators that have shared that with me.
Yeah, I feel like when I read through your bio, just seeing that you've been dancing with Bebe Miller for, I think, 25
years.
25,
yeah, that's a long time.
And just the fact also that, she's been around. I read that her company was started in 1985. That's 40 years of doing work. I saw the company in Chicago, I think before you were in it. I think it was in 92 or 93. Another funny sort of layer that that connects us, although it didn't connect us live, is Columbia College.
Yes,
because I went there as a bachelor's student. I got my bachelor's of arts there, and it was really influential in the sense that it was a technique-based school, but we had so much improvisation and we had so much composition. And I also danced in Shirley Mordine's company.
Yes.
Mordine and Company. And that was also such an improvisation-based work. It was choreographed, but, we always had improvisation as the basis, and it was a collaborative process with Shirley. And then I had these fantastic teachers, Deb Siegel and Jan Eckert, who were equally prolific on the technical levels as well as on the improvisational and compositional levels. And I feel like that I still owe them so much, and so much even of, the somatic work and the holistic work that I do now is still grounded in all of that composition and improvisation. And then on top of all of that, Columbia College also was the main presenter of modern dance in Chicago at the time, and I think it still is in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so I had this huge privilege of sort of getting informed on multiple levels, both as a student and as a professional dancer, and also seeing so much. And Bebe Miller was one of the artists, was one of the companies back then that was hugely influential. It was in the 90s, and it was also, she was a Black choreographer where I could feel like her, she was really, like her work felt really informed by social topics, or even, I don't know if it was back then, if they even called it that, but ecological topics. Like there was early on, I could feel like an emotionality to her work, or also sort of a femininity in her work that I did not see back then. Like I felt like there was a lot of physicality and great composition and speciality and all of that. But with Bebe, and I'm wondering how that influenced you, since she seems to be one of the main influences, or you've been dancing with her for so long, I guess. Like how the topics of her work or her way of working, how it has influenced you over the years.
Yes, Columbia College. Just the further backstory on that was my first full-time college university job that I got when I was 32, I think. So I had the really great pleasure of working there with some wonderful colleagues in the early 2000s. And also Deb Siegel, it was a childhood, or is a childhood friend of Bebe's.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
So that's another amazing little moment of connection. I think that when you were talking and kind of working your way through what you were experiencing when you see Bebe's work in terms of the feminine, being a Black American artist, the socio-cultural expression of it, I really think that when I think about the process, how we make the things we make in the company, that I think what you're perceiving or kind of getting is we talk about it in terms of our humanity and our individual. It's a little bit different than personality, though personality is a part of it. We certainly embrace the personality of each of the collaborators in the company, but it has something to do with how our humanity, our culture show up in the body. And like we're constantly trying to make transparent ourselves, maybe not make transparent, but to work with the dilation or contraction of the transparency of our humanity as individuals in community.
Can I stop you right there?
Yes.
I'm wow. The dilation. How did you say that? The dilation of the transparency.
The dilation and contraction.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going to have to remember. No, I'm going to have to remember that, because that feels like, it also feels cellular in some ways. I mean, that's what we're constantly doing. And as a performer, I feel like that's something that we're constantly having to do, that I cannot be completely transparent all the time. And I don't definitely can be closed off. So the dilation of that feels very fluid, and also feels very organic. Wow. I love that.
Yes. I mean, I think anyone that has a performance practice has a relationship to that. Whether they can word it in that way or not doesn't really matter. But I think you are in relationship to that. Like, how much of you are you sharing, making visible, perceivable moment to moment? And I think, in many ways, when we look at many of our inspirations from kind of mid-century American, last century American dance making in New York, and the folks that came out of Judson, and the folks that were working with improvisation and performance, people like Simone Forti and Steve and Yvonne Rainer. That in the history books, it is always called pedestrian, and I obviously it's more complex than that. I think it really is more what we're talking about, which it was about not only noticing it in ourselves, but also including it, and like giving ourselves permission to include it as material and matter, that it is the matter of what we're doing, that revealing of our experience, and not only our immediate experience, because even though, yes, we said what we just said about the like present moment as this value, in the performance, I'm really trying to be in the present moment. The present moment includes history. Like, it includes that tale of experience that got me to that moment. And it includes that projection into what's next,
what comes,
the future. Yeah. And so I intentionally don't like spend time in the future or the past, because I'm valuing that present moment. But I think I am always including it as how I got there, or where I'm going. Meaning like that I don't pretend that I just disappear after this moment, or that there is that in my cells, like there is the history of my experience and my culture and the people that have influenced me, both in person to person, but also more deeply through time. And those, I have a harder time kind of putting words to it, but it's one of those things that I said in the beginning, I know is real. Like, I know that I'm with those humans and more than human beings that were before me, and that will be after me. So that's a little cosmic, but I think because I trust that that's happening, I'm able to be agile with it in the performance. Yeah, we got a little off track in terms of the Bebe stuff, so I can say a little bit more about Bebe's work. It might be nice. She's such a giant in our field, and she is as a mind and a choreographer and a performer herself, just given us so much in terms of what's possible. What's possible on the stage, like the kinds of dances we might make and perform, but also how to build a life, how to have a life in this field, and how to do that. She has a very beautiful history that I won't go into, but please, everyone, go look it up. Very singular path, and there's something about her that has just, she trusts her own mind and her own curiosity as important and valid and meaningful. And I think that seeing her do that over and over again in rehearsal, and now again, we've been together 25 years, we're family, that me seeing her trust that in herself, it just taught me so much about what's possible and what I'm allowed to do and not do. So we can kind of sift it through and really talk about it on an art level, but for me, the impact is more on that being a person in the world, being a citizen, being an artist. Yes, she's a woman, and sometimes that really is powerful to me. Sometimes she's, it's powerful that she's a Black artist. But usually the big identifier of Bebe, I feel like, is she's a dancer. She's a choreographer. Like, she loves dance so much, and she loves to talk about it, and she loves being in the studio. And I think for years now, we just we keep saying, oh, that's it, that's the last one. And then we just really love being in the studio, talking about dance, making dance, looking at movement, experiencing something, saying, what is that? What just happened? It's just so wonderful. And so that feels more about kind of what keeps you going in terms of your own practice. And for us, it has also manifested these performances that have had lives way beyond our own studio, which is incredible and great. I'm so grateful for that. But I think the driver of it a lot of times is just our own curiosity and love of being in community as dancers.
I think it's a great point that, thank you for sharing that about her, and also how it's influenced you. I can resonate with that, because I feel like often it's people who, it's of course what they do, or like, like whatever profession they have, sort of the outcome of what they do, but it's often more how they are or how they keep going. And so, like, one of the things that, of course, as a teacher and as a teacher of teachers, one of the things I encounter so often is people asking me, well, how do you keep going? We have such a precarious profession. It's such a youth-oriented profession. It's so dependent on our physical capabilities. It's one of the most underpaid professions that we can be in, and at the same time, we can be lucky to have educations and to be able to sustain ourselves, and I feel myself included in that. And still, it takes a huge amount of commitment to sustain a professional dance career. And I'm wondering if there's something along the line of your professional life that, I think we're about the same age, that, you've danced in big dance companies. You've won. Did you win one or two Bessies?
One Bessie.
Bessie.
The company had won another one, well, three other ones for the first piece I was in, which was a quartet, an ensemble piece. So we've had some success with the work that we've made over the last 25 years. Yes.
And you have also won as a performer.
Yes.
And I have to share that with those of you who might not be familiar with the Bessie. My translation is the Bessie is the Oscars of the dance world.
Yes.
I'm just going to say it like that. Yes, because we don't have enough accomplishments. And so I think it's really incredible. And it's really incredible to see kind of, like the longevity of your career. And I'm also wondering, like, what it is that you can share with other people, like what kept you going from also the younger years, or maybe the bigger stages to the smaller stages, to teaching also, and to also being a mother and being, we're both also in our 50s now, like sort of transitioning into different phases. Like what's the underlying or the overlining sort of quality that keeps you going or that supports you in this profession?
Sure. It changes maybe the manifestation or the strategies have shifted at different kind of big chunks of phases of my life. I think what we already talked about, I think I have that drive to be in and understand my world. And the way I do that is through movement and being with people, collaborating, like making things with people. So I really, if I look at like how I spend my time, I'm not a particularly extroverted person. I can be, but I don't have to be out all the time, and I don't like to be out all the time. But in terms of purpose, it's always in collaboration. So I get a lot of juice and support from making things, and the making could be a dance, but it can also be curriculum for a department in terms of my job in the college, gardening, dinner, creating something with other people. So the way I've built friendships and relationships have been through working, and the working is some kind of shared project, like we're going to get this done. Chris Aiken and I taught this workshop for many years called Dance Improvisation and Performance Intensive, and we would teach it at Earth Dance. And one year we did this wonderful score in the afternoon where we went out into the woods at Earth Dance. Earth Dance is a residential retreat center in Western Massachusetts, and it's surrounded by 200 acres of woods. And just in the back behind where the living area is, we took the group out and we took an hour and we gave them a score for it, but we basically built a walking path. And the score was that we were going to build a walking path that you could walk on barefoot. So from here to here, you could walk through the woods barefoot. And we did it in silence, and we had tools, and we just went out there and built this path. And it was so meaningful for this group of people who had been dancing together and really working quite hard every day, 6 hours of dancing every day for probably 4 or 5 days at this point. And then they went out and did this thing that was more related to labor, they're both labor for me, but, and the way it just was this manifestation of all the things we talk about in ensemble improvisation, of how you're listening, how you're paying attention, how you're communicating and transmitting, how you're yielding, how you're stepping forward, the things that have to happen when you're working in an ensemble. And yeah, and it was organized by this project, this one thing that we were going to do. And we all each had our own understanding of it. And we just got to it. And I think there's something that's the thing that keeps me going, is finding energy in those kinds of projects. And of course, they're not always there. And those, I think, are the darker times where you're like, I'm floating, I'm lost, I don't quite have that. And so how do I reorient or construct it? I mean, I think maybe that's the strategy I've found, is that to construct it for myself, to gather the people that I think might be, of like mind. Sometimes that's groups of students. Sometimes it's just my artistic collaborators, family, friends, work. Yeah. And I was just thinking that there was one other piece to that. Like, how do you kind of make a life in this pretty challenging field? Yeah. Well, one, I'm very lucky. I can never answer a question like that without just acknowledging my privilege. And I know I'm not the only person that has the talents I have, and even the quality of talent I have. I think I do what I do, and that's special and particular to me. But also, there's so many amazing dancers and performers and thinkers that do this work that don't get the same platforms that I have had. And that, it has a lot to do with luck and timing. And yes, I work hard and do the work that it takes to be there when it does happen. But I mean, I'm just grateful for the luck I've had to be in the places I've been in, to get the jobs I've gotten, and of course then build those relationships. So yeah, I think that there are times where it wasn't as clear what direction I was going to go in, and how dance was going to manifest in my life. But I think always the improviser. I was really present in my 20s. I'm really thinking about my 20s now, and being in New York and getting way more rejection than I was getting any kind of validation. I mean, just rivers of rejection. This is every day. It was just like, okay, get your pants on and go out there and get rejected, because that's just what it was. There was very little validation, or like, you're on the right track. It was all like, no. So I don't know how you kind of get the thick skin to be able to survive that. It does take thick skin. And in this work, we're constantly trying to be available and and vulnerable and open to our world. And in performance, you really want to be able to activate that kind of soft underbelly, and to do that as you're also trying to just survive everyone in the world telling you that no. So
and then there's aging, and then there's motherhood, and then there's injuries, and there's finances on top of all of that.
I know. When you think when you think about your 20s, when you're in your 50s and you think about your 20s, you're like, oh my god,
it was so easy back
so
then.
easy.
It was like, it was just me.
But in your 20s, you don't have, it's too bad in your 20s you don't have that ability to think about your 50s, because it does help you keep it all in perspective. But yes, I have, I parent 2 kids. I have a stepchild with Chris, Lucy, beautiful adult now, and then I have a teenager. And it's a different thing. I mean, once you have those babies, it's just like, okay, your values just shift, and you just realign, and there's no, I mean, for me, I didn't like question it. I just did it.
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit to what you were saying about collaboration, I love that you say that that's sort of the sustaining element throughout all of these years, because I can totally confirm that for myself. And it reminded me of an interview that I heard of William Forsythe. And, it was just, it was a big interview about his entire work, and, and he's such a sort of humble mind. And then, he just said so disarmingly, he's like, Bea, but you know what? All these sort of, I don't know how exactly he put it, but basically he said, what I enjoy the most is being in the studio with these dancers, because dancers are just the most incredible people on this earth. Yeah. And I just appreciate that so much of how he said that. And that's what I also feel like, the sort of the humor and the intelligence and the silliness of how we can be together, and the availability of being in the present moment. And and that includes, to me, so many people that are not professional dancers, because I feel like we're all dancers, but like when we have access to this mindset of being in our bodies and being also in an improvisational mind, it just opens up the space of how we can be together. And like what you were describing of your project with Chris, I feel like almost anything is possible. It's like we have so much access to togetherness, to connection, to mirror neurons, to community, to also a healing quality of being with each other, and then also with this earth. So I
think a lot of what we're doing in our classes, what Chris and I do in our improvisation classes, and you probably can relate to this in your work, that we're creating these platforms. In that situation, it was the platform of building this path, but it could be a very different studio-based platform. And we're teaching people ways of paying attention, ways of noticing themselves as they're doing this thing, which is different from teaching them how to do the thing.
And that can be applied to so many things in life. I mean, I feel like, and that's also where I was just reading this article, sort of these scientific findings on the benefits of dance and dance therapy and embodiment. And I think it's great that people are studying that and putting that into scientific research. But it's like, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Spatial awareness, presence, communication, sensory motor skills. Yeah. I mean, it's all right there.
Well, dancers know so much, and I do think in this time of very wicked problems that we are all trying to solve, dancers, we know a lot, and I don't quite know how to implement that experience and knowledge towards this big project of our world right now. But I do know that there's a real resource in this work that we do, and how we do it with each other. we have to
Yeah, I
purpose
remember
it.
Nita. Yeah, I remember Nita Little in one of the conversations I had with her, which was, many years ago, 20 years ago, and in her way, she's like, they should study dancers. We know it all. I mean, that's pretty much the summary, but it's not arrogant. It's just really this wealth of information of how to be in the world and how to be in our bodies and also how to relate to each other. It's really worth studying. I'm going to have to turn down one of my shutters. I'll be right
Go
back
ahead.
in one moment because
Sure.
otherwise
Yes.
I'll be totally...
Of course.
Yeah. See if I get the right one. Is this better? No. Hold on.
Are you there?
This should be right. Yes.
Okay, great.
So we're kind of heading towards the end of. Yeah.
I just wanted to say one quick thing about what you just said about that dancers know. I remember I had that experience with a lot of the science. You had mentioned the mirror neurons before, and when the fascia research really started to kind of boom into kind of mainstream information, I just remember being like, yeah. I mean, I didn't know it was fascia, but there was all this science around how it's the organ of communication, that there's this that it's this tensegrity structure that runs throughout the whole body, that that your distal edges of your hand are connected through sensation, and not just sensation but that kind of your mind into your foot. I was like, yes, that is my experience, and I know that, and I would not have been able to say it's fascia or whatever at the time, but yeah, and that just happens over and over again, where the science, I feel like, catches up and gives us language or frameworks to talk about our experience that we already are having. And I love that dance, and it just feels like it just keeps happening and keeps happening, where the science is describing our experience that we know.
We live, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. We're kind of heading towards the end of the podcast. Okay. I do feel like, because you've got such a wealth of professional experience, you've danced in choreography, you've danced in improvisational choreographies and this whole overlapping sort of area, and you're also a contact improvisation dancer. And I also come from what used to be called modern dance, now is contemporary dance, and I, oftentimes encounter sort of this unfortunate divide between contemporary dance and contact improvisation. In some schools of thought, contact improvisation has a bad reputation, and I kind of feel like that's really a pity. I mean, I can also see it to a certain degree, because there's, unfortunately, like in any field, there's some unprofessionality in some contexts, some festivals, or even some jams, or organizers are probably not up to the professional standards that we would like. But the form itself, I find it to be such a valuable, such a rich, such a nourishing, both healing, interrelational, but also artistic form, that I always kind of feel myself also like an ambassador to communicate between these two I don't even feel like they're separate fields, but sometimes it feels like there's different camps or different opinions on that. So I'm wondering how you can share your experience around contact improvisation, or like the value that you see in the form, and maybe also about this relationship to contemporary dance.
Sure. Yes. Well, I will say that for me, I came to contact improvisation again through the art world of kind of last century, 60s and 70s, the dancers of which Steve Paxton was a part, asking questions about performance and movement and art making. And that is, contact improvisation came out of that in 1972. It was made as a piece to be performed in a gallery, and Steve was asking questions around falling and momentum and touch and improvising. And that, I studied art history in school, and that's how I sort of found it, was through the art making world. So I've always had that frame, which is just a different frame than a lot of folks that practice. A lot of folks that practice and that center contact improvisation in their life are brought to it because of the sort of social experience of being with other people. They're getting a lot of their social energy from being together at jams and different festivals and doing the form. So both are totally fine. They're just different. So when I'm teaching and holding space to explore contact improvisation, I get lots of different people who are coming at it from different ways. And a lot of people that come to a contact workshop come because they are interested in the social aspect of it. But there are those folks that are really interested in dancing and movement that come. My classes, and particularly Chris Aiken and I teach these classes together, I think have a reputation of being a home for the dancers, kind of the modern dancers who want to practice contact improvisation, because we consistently go back to things, the teachings and writings of Steve Paxton, Nancy Stark Smith, who was a dear friend and my very first teacher. I just wandered into her class not even knowing what it was, and had the amazing, again, luck of it being Nancy as my person that exposed me to contact improvisation. Both Steve and Nancy remained curious around the body and the physics and how and perception, and that's the core of what I do and why I do contact improvisation. So I just try to share that, and I think I'm pretty good, again, with Chris. I think we're pretty good at creating a container that makes that really explicit, that what we're doing is we're dancing, and we're dancing together, and we're exploring within this framework how perception and imagination interact with action, and how we do that, including touch. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, Chris is one of my favorite dance people. I don't know if you know the story, but he was one of my first contact teachers.
Amazing.
Back in the 90s at Columbia. But I think what I really appreciate, both of you also teaching, I mean, I've had more of his teachings, but I got to witness both of you last summer, is that you are still inclusive. So I feel like, you both are teaching at big universities, and you will have this sort of academic background, and you have your technical background, but here we go. A little choreography in between.
Yes.
But you also still are available to teaching the larger community. You still go to contact improvisation festivals. You teach. Actually, you will be teaching in Vienna.
Yes.
Both of you, do you know this? Yes.
Yes, I do.
You coming? Yes, in January of 2026. Louise Springer, she's organizing. So just as a little announcement. So you're not, I don't feel like you are elitist about it. And I think that's really valuable. But at the same time, what you bring to it is such a high level of standard and a high level of investigation that really just kind of raises the bar for all of us. And it just brings this fresh air of professionalism to the communities and to the festivals that I think is really, really needed. and at the same time your willingness to have conversations about it, and to speak about where, like, I feel like one of the wonders about contact improvisation is that it's such an open form, and that they didn't regulate it, or they didn't sort of codify it, and so it kept on changing, and it's kind of this I don't know, this little world wonder that it's changed, and so many people are dancing in so many different countries, and there's so many jams, and there's so many different ways that people are dancing, that I think it has had a very organic sort of development. But to also kind of hold the principles of the form, and to hold also where it comes from, it really kind of brings a sincerity to the form that I think kind of, it's almost like it freshens the waters. It kind of clears up the intentions behind it. Yeah.
One of my favorite things in the world is to be in Chris's class. It's so amazing that I get to co-teach, and co-teaching is such a special thing, because the way Chris and I do it, one of us will really be teaching that session, and then the other person is taking the class and observing, and then we'll talk about it, and then the next person will go for the next session. And that being in your co-teacher's class is so it's just a wonderful place to be, because you're being held by them. They're taking care of the sort of flow of information and the bigger frame, and you are really able to dive into the experience. So that I get to do that with Chris, who has amazing language and an amazing depth of experience, and just deep understanding of the form, and both from Steve and Nancy, but also from his own research that he's done for decades, from those original propositions of Steve and Nancy. The original propositions, but also the evolving propositions. Both Steve Paxton and Nancy Stark Smith were moving on. They were always asking new questions, and pushing their own thinking and exploration forward. And Chris does that as well. And so I think that my experience of contact improvisation is being in those, that's where I really love to be, is in those containers that are holding those origin propositions clearly, but then valuing that, like, now let's go and do the research and see how it's going to manifest today. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So maybe just for the last minutes, like, where are you now, and what's interesting, or what kind of projects are you busy with right now?
I am working with Bebe and Daryl Jones. That's someone I haven't mentioned, but Daryl Jones is a longtime partner, my longest dance partner. I've known him since I was 21, 20. And we have danced with Bebe for the 25 years that we've both been in the company. So Daryl and Bebe and I and another dancer, Stacy Spence, who danced with Trisha Brown for a bunch of years, we are making a piece for Harlem Stage, which will happen in May of this year. So we've been working on that. It's called Indifferent Forest, and it is really looking at, taking inspiration or jumping off from plants and plant community. And for me, I'm very interested in plants as constructors of form, and how they are constantly not only constructing form, but they are manifesting form. There's this beautiful book, The Life of Plants by Emmanuel Cocha, and he talks about how he's very poetic, and he says something about how they don't have hands, but you would be hard pressed to find an agent more capable of constructing form in our cosmos. So that piece, quartet, will happen in May, and we've been working on that and thinking about that. And Chris and I are doing our thing, which involves teaching and improvising and dancing together, and raising our family together. And I'll go back to British Columbia this summer. We met some beautiful dancers when we were at Salt Spring, and we're going to go back and do a little teaching in Vancouver with Peter Bingham's dancers at Edom, and then do a short workshop in Victoria. Yeah, so I think just moving along.
Besides teaching at the university.
Yes, and I teach at Smith. Yes, I teach at Smith College, and so so for it's sort of this on off. It's like when the semester is in, we're fully here working with our students here, and then the semester ends and we go out and connect into the world. And that's how we're able to come to Vienna in January, is we're on that break, and so we sort of put on that other hat, and it's our favorite time because we get to be together and go. And that's that's where we do a lot of our research now for Chris and me, is in those workshops with the folks that come to workshops with us. We're always teaching new material and really staying kind of walking the walk of improvising new ideas with new people when we are in those workshops. So I look forward to Vienna with you.
Well, yes. Angie, I just wanted to say goodbye. Thank you so much for all of that you've been sharing. And it's just been a pleasure to hear about your experiences and to just get your point of view and to hear about all of your your life experiences as a professional dancer. I think that's such an invaluable point of view. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabine. It's been a joy to be here. I really appreciate you. You're so smart and talented, and it's wonderful to be in a conversation around dance in this way. So thank you for doing this and sharing it with other people. I really appreciate the invitation to have a conversation.
If you would like to know more about holistic dance and the Holistic Dance Institute, please visit us at our website, www.holistic-dance.at. Holistic dance is an invitation to transformation through dance, movement, and touch. It was founded by me, Sabine Parzer, in 2010. It is a mix of different methods, a dynamic cross-method approach from dance pedagogical, dance and body therapeutic, systemic and holistic methods. We offer authentic movement, integrative contact improvisation, somatics and applied anatomy, improvisation, ecosomatics, and many more elements. I offer holistic dance workshops, I offer single sessions, I offer teachers trainings, embodiment trainings, advanced teachers tracks, year groups, and retreats. I would be very happy to see you at one of our events. And if you have any questions, please write me an email.